Sleep, 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 sleep. How's your sleep? My own personal journey with getting better sleep has been a long, 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 long road. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about some of the things that I have learned about making sure. I've never had an issue with getting to sleep. My issues have more resided around staying asleep. But there's going to be things around getting to sleep better that I've done some research on, and also, again, using my own experience that we're going to be able to use to create some sort of sleep routine, help you get some better tips on things that you can try. But all in all, it comes down to a routine. It comes down to thinking about what you can do and actually being disciplined. Someone said to me the other day, actually, discipline is not a dirty word. And I loved that, if I'm going to use it here. I was like, yeah, that's right. It's not a dirty word. It's actually like a really good word. So discipline isn't a dirty word, but it's more about disciplining ourselves and telling ourselves no, sticking to our own boundaries with ourselves so that we can improve our sleep and interrupt the negative effects of sleep that probably show up throughout your day. Now, if you have watched my previous video on my relationship with my toxic workplace, then you will know that when I went to the doctor and they said, look, you're just going to have to figure it out. That was like one of the worst things for me. I didn't want that advice. But ever since then, I have always struggled with sleep. And it's only of recent months, I would say, only of recent months that I am improving. And when we can't sleep, the things that are affected by that in our day to day is they are just so vast. There is not one thing that isn't affected by a lack of sleep. And I don't want to go into the science of things because that's not my area. But if you do your research, you'll know that you need sleep in order to be able to function in the daytime. So some of those things that pop up, some of those symptoms of lack of sleep will always show up in your day to day. And I'm not talking about the sleep that is maybe a couple of nights, maybe you have a rough night here and there. I'm talking about prolonged poor sleep. Like those are the things that will affect you the most. And actually, more recently, the thing that really made me step into my discipline is seeing dark circles around my eyes and not liking it. Because having poor sleep is one thing for me, but once it becomes visible, it starts to become, it's seen. It's a mental thing that has developed so vastly that starts to show itself physically. And I was like, okay, this is obviously too far. I really need to do something about this. And that's really what kicked me into taking it really seriously. So some of the things that show up as symptoms of a prolonged period of poor sleep is obviously focus, concentration. Mental focus is so important when we're trying to function, navigate our day. If we can't be focused on certain things, it's just kind of like, it feels like we're climbing up this massive mountain and we feel like this thing should be so simple, but it's not, because we haven't had any sleep and we're finding it hard to even take one step at a time, you know. Another thing is about patience and tolerance. Patience, tolerance, reacting. I've put here reacting versus responding. Now, when I have spoken about this very briefly on my TikTok, so if you're not following TikTok, follow it. I spoke very briefly about the difference between reacting versus responding. A reaction is something that happens usually out of control. Yeah, usually not controlled very well at the very least. Whereas responding is usually something that's thought through, measured, you know. And if you had a choice between reacting versus responding, which one would you choose? Would you choose the explosive, or would you choose the one that has more foundation, more structure, which is the response? And when we have a lack of sleep, it's sometimes difficult to manage and think about how we want something to come across. We become snappy, we become moody, become cranky, because it's hard to manage other people's expectations, because it's literally just like, I don't have the energy kind of thing. And I think sometimes it creeps up on you as well when you haven't been sleeping very well. You don't realize that the reason that you're cranky is because you haven't been sleeping very well. So keep that in mind as well. Your energy levels is also another thing. When you haven't had a good sleep, especially when I haven't had a good sleep, I'm trying to nap in the daytime. I'm trying to nap at any time. And again, in that last video, I was saying, because I hadn't slept and I was drinking coffee all the time, my sleep was all over the place, and I was head bucking and I would fall asleep everywhere. As soon as I sat down, I'm asleep anywhere. So I'm laughing about it now. It's not funny, but it's kind of like keeping in mind that your energy is going to be low. You're not going to be able to push yourself as hard. And where maybe you think you're putting in 100%, what's coming out is actually only 50%. And then again, not to ramble on onto another topic, but then we start to beat ourselves up and we start to say, well, I should, well, I should, well, I should. These are all the things that become so much more difficult to manage and maintain when we haven't had a good night's sleep for at least a prolonged period of time. Okay. So the days automatically seem longer. You lose your words. You start to say a lot more, especially like maybe during meetings. You might find yourself kind of zoning out, thinking about when the next time you can get to sleep, or the next time you can drink a coffee, or the next time you can have caffeine in whichever form. Like you really lose yourself. It's hard to stay focused. It's hard to put your point across when you haven't had enough sleep. It affects so many different things. It's also hard to judge other people's facial expressions and what they might be saying, because again, just to go back to what I said before about patience, our patience levels are a bit off, so we might read into things differently. And a step further than that is being able to understand our own emotions, because we're not able to slow down and think about what's actually going on for us. It's a lot easier to confuse a feeling for something that it actually isn't. It's very easy to say that, this person's being rude to me, this has triggered me, this, whatever it might be. Your patience is gone. You can't slow down because you have so much to do, but it feels like you've got a mountain to climb. It just doesn't help, especially when you haven't slept well. Okay. So if you're unclear of what the signs are, these are some of them. Okay. So another thing that I've noticed, especially with myself, is that when I've had a lack of like a bad night or a few bad nights, I find it much harder to remember things. I'm more likely to walk into a room and be like, well, what did I come in there for again? And it's, again, not helpful. The thing I said about the bags under my eyes that I noticed, you can see it. And that's not just because there's bags under the eyes, but it starts to become a physical strain on your body. Some people get back pain because they haven't had a good night's sleep for so long. Some people have body aches and all of that kind of stuff, because in the nighttime, your body needs to rest. You need that rest in order to function in the daytime. And again, not wanting to go into the scientific spiel of it, because that's not my area. But the melatonin and serotonin, you need both of them to be able to function adequately. And one of them is to be asleep, and one of them, it needs to be awake. And when you're asleep, your body is replenishing. An example that someone used a long time that's always stuck with me is if you were to go into a shop every day and buy something, you would essentially go into that shop every day and expect that the next day that same thing is going to be there, because they would have replenished. So in the nighttime, if you are constantly buying things or outputting things or selling things, giving away things out of your body, if in the nighttime you're not replenishing, eventually that shop is going to be bare. Your body is going to be bare. It's not going to have what it needs to be able to function accordingly. Okay. And again, it's not just like a couple of nights sleep here and there that you have tough sleep. Yeah, maybe you still have some of these effects, but when you have a prolonged lack of sleep, these things show up in everything, all the time, in different behaviors, in different ways. And even what I'm sharing now is not the exhausted list of things and symptoms that might show up. So actually, I'm going to post a link to I think it was Healthline, article that really gives like a full breakdown of the impact of lack of sleep, the things that some of the things that you can do, and just how it affects you, just so that you can hopefully understand the importance of prioritizing this and making this something that you continuously work on. One of the things that I think is absolutely wonderful is the fact that we have these watches now, the smart watches, because you can see how much sleep you have had, or roughly how much sleep you've had. So I have a smartwatch. I don't have it on now, but what I've noticed is that it's really helped me to track my sleep. If you don't have a smartwatch, it's not, something that is a necessity. I would just say, if you can, write down, what time you've gone to sleep, make a note of what time you've gone to sleep, what time you've woken up, and just keep it simple that way. Okay. But that smartwatch has really helped me to track, how my night has been. And it's really helped me to create a plan about what works and what doesn't work for me. So based on the suggestions and the strategies that I'm going to share, I want you to create something that says that can measure whether it's being helpful or whether it's not being helpful. And I'm not suggesting you do all of these things, but you might find that some things work better for you, something than other things, and then you just lean into that. I would say it starts with obviously getting to sleep. I've never had an issue with getting to sleep, but what I realized is that even getting to sleep and staying asleep, it all starts before you even get there, before you are getting ready for bed and that kind of thing. So having a sleep routine is extremely important. And you've probably heard this before. If you haven't, then you'll probably hear it again. Having a sleep routine is so important, because it's kind of like training your brain to be prepared to shut down. It starts from the moment you wake up, essentially, because some people will say that if you work out at some point throughout the day, that's a great start to making sure that you have built up your energy, and then you're working through your energy so that in the nighttime you are ready to go to sleep. Okay. Caffeine, my gosh. Limit your caffeine. Like, I started to say no caffeine after 12. This was years ago now. But I really needed to cut back on the caffeine because, again, not necessarily in the toxic workplace, but just in general, someone will be like, "Oh, do you want a coffee?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, okay." And it'll be like 3 o'clock. Why am I drinking coffee at 3 o'clock? And I've got sleep issues. That doesn't make sense. So limit the caffeine. I would personally say no caffeine after 2. And if you're going to have caffeine, don't let it be like a huge amount of caffeine, like coffee. Maybe drink something a little lighter, like a tea, or like a black tea, or an Earl Grey, or something like that, so that it's not leaving a huge amount of caffeine by the time you're ready to actually get to your bed. Okay, that's one of the things that I would say. Try not to eat late. That's another thing. Try not to eat too late. Give your body time to digest the food so that it's not trying to replenish and digest at the same time. Yeah. Okay. So Some people say, well, if you sleep late, then that means you can eat late. I'm not a nutritionist. So, again, it has to be, what works for you, essentially. So if you find that actually you prefer eating late, and based on your observations, you sleep better, or it doesn't affect your sleep at all, then great, continue to eat late. But if you find that actually when you eat late, you have more disturbed sleep, then that's going to be something that you would take into account, and you'd say, okay, maybe I should eat a bit earlier. But it's always based on what works for you. One of the things that I come across all the time, and I've actually been someone who has tried this again in the past, is drinking alcohol to get to sleep. You drink alcohol to get to sleep, but then it doesn't keep you asleep. It's a trick. It's a trick of the mind, because actually your mind becomes more and more active, and then you end up waking up and feeling really groggy. It's alcohol is not a sleep sedative, and I've actually looked at the research, and it's definitely not the sleep sedative. Okay, don't use alcohol to get to sleep. Think of other ways. There's teas you can drink. There's chamomile, there's lavender, there's passion flower. These are all great. And actually, if you're in London, and you're in South London in particular, or wherever it is, because I'm sure you can get these things on Amazon. But if you are in London, you can go to Netta Vital, in Brixton, and they have all of these things. They have lavender, they have chamomile, they have passion flower, and these are all great sleepy teas. And I mix all of them together so that I can drink my sleepy tea and enjoy my night when I'm finding it hard to get to sleep. So my sleep routine, my ideal sleep routine, because I can't say that I always get all of these things done, is to turn down the lights. Oh my gosh, turn the lights down. Get a dimmed effect. Low lights, as low as you can get them without having to bang into the corner of your bed or something like that. Okay. All right. Low lights where possible. Then when you're preparing yourself, I would say anything with lavender, anything with like soothing smells, especially lavender. Some people don't like lavender, but there's other ones that you can use as well. Soothing scents, have that as something that is just in your environment. Okay, so if you have like a candle, you can light a candle, leave it in your bedroom, go off for a shower or a bath. Some people like a bath. And then when you come back, the room is filled with that calming aroma. Okay. One of the random things that I like is Palo Santo. So I like to burn that. And that really helps me to calm and relax, and eventually go to sleep. But again, like I said, I've never had any issue with getting to sleep. Um, Journaling. I I've put it on my habit tracker, actually, that so I want to, sorry, have a shower, wash my face, brush my teeth. I want to journal. I want to write down whatever thoughts have come to mind, even if it's just one word. And I was pushing myself so hard at one point to make sure I write something, that I would wake up in the next morning with my hand with the pen and the book in my hand, and you could just see me trailing off. I don't know what I was writing, but you could just see it trailing off. It just absolutely, it always made me laugh. So when I was doing like my wake up routine, which would be to journal, I would look back and I'd be like, that's so funny, because I can't even tell. I'm literally just writing in squiggles. I can't even tell what I was trying to write. But anyway, journal if you can. Okay. And brain dump. Get rid of anything that you are that you are worried about from the day. If you Some people like to make a list of things that they want to do the next day, so that they can park it and they know they don't have to think about it anymore. That has been a thing that has come up quite a lot in my research as well. Okay. Find what works for you. You have to find what works for you. Something that has been working for me, I have a Samsung. So if you got iPhone, I can't help you. I have a Samsung, and it has the Samsung modes and routines. And one of the things that has helped me so much, because what I would do, again, this is more of a waking up in the night thing, but again, part of the sleep routine in general, is it allows you to set a timer or set a routine where you can change your front screen. And I've changed my front screen in the nighttime to just show no notifications. So if I glance at my phone when I shouldn't be, I'm not going to see that there's an email, there's a WhatsApp, there's a blah, 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 whatever. I won't get that temptation to think, oh, what is that? And the whole thing is about making it more difficult, or putting more steps in between you interrupting your sleep. Okay. Okay. Next is staying asleep. This is my area. My area is staying asleep. The tricks and the hints and tricks of staying asleep. My goodness. There are times, and to be fair, this comes down a lot to discipline. It comes down so much to discipline, because if you are someone who wants to know what's going on in the world at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna want your phone, okay? But it's not healthy. Whatever's going on at 4 o'clock in the morning is none of your business. Whatever's going on at 4 o'clock in the morning is none of your business. All the ideas that you have, I get it. You're having a lot of ideas, but that goes back to what I was saying about making sure that you're trying to write down as much as you can before you sleep, so that you don't end up keeping your brain active whilst you're trying to sleep. Okay. So if you think you're going to sleep and you've got things on your mind, your brain hasn't had a chance to slow down yet. Okay. So actually this falls into the category of, pre-sleep a little bit. Like, if you're going to read before you sleep, don't read something that is, requires your brain to think. Don't read something that requires you to put two and two together. For me, like, I would read and I'll start to think, oh, well, that applies to this. Oh yeah, that applies to this. And as much as I love to read those things, it's not bedtime reading. Bedtime reading is a storybook. Bedtime reading is something easy, something maybe of interest, but nothing that requires you to think any more than just reading and enjoying. Okay. If you end up waking up in the nighttime, I want you to give yourself a chance by not turning on, a chance of getting back to sleep by not turning on any lights. So if, for example, you wake up, you need to go to the toilet because you drank your wonderful sleepy tea and now you need to wake up and go pee. Like, try and keep the lights as low as possible. If you can walk around in the dark, do that. But for me, I can't do that. But I have now these small lights that I use, which is almost like sunrise lights. Like, they're not super bright, and it's great. It means that I avoid turning on any big lights, because big lights means wake up. Okay, no big lights. And these might be self-explanatory to some people, but I know that for me, I had to learn all of these things. So no big lights. Do not look at your phone. You have no reason. Remember, no reason to look at your phone at 4 o'clock in the morning. And if you do, I have mentioned this app, the notifications, where you turn off the notifications. Yeah. Where you turn off the notifications and you hide them from yourself, essentially, until you turn off your sleep routine, on your phone, on your Samsung or Android. Let me say Android. So for example, the only apps that I have still open, because I know that I will eventually look at my phone, and because some of the things that I'm going to suggest are linked to your phone. For example, if you were to put on like a meditation, if you were to listen to some music, or listen to an adult sleep story, which there are loads of those on Spotify. If you were to read something, maybe your Kindle is on your phone. Great if you have a separate Kindle, but maybe your Kindle is on your phone. Those are the things that you can always use. And my to-do list. My to-do list is also an app that I keep open, so I lock all other apps apart from Spotify, my to-do list, YouTube, and a couple of other things. Yeah, my to-do list and my notebook, just in case it's nothing to do. Because when I wake up in the night and I think of something, I need to get rid of it. I don't need to hold on to it now. I don't need to try to remember it for the morning. Whatever it is, even if I know that I won't forget, write it down in your to-do and let it go. Okay. So we've got no big lights. If you're going to go to the loo, you've got not looking at your phone. But if you do look at your phone, set it up so that you're not looking at notifications. You have to do further steps to start to look at notifications. Okay. Recognize that your bed is for sleeping. Okay. And I know that seems so like, of course, Janelle, your bed is of course for sleeping, but your bed is for sleeping. So if you can't sleep for like half an hour, I would get up, sit across the room, go to another room, journal, write things down. If you really can't get something particular off your mind, then I would say do that. If you find that it's not something particular, then I definitely recommend breathing exercises. I recommend breathing exercises. The one that has really helped me recently is so simple, but it's 4 breaths in, hold for 7 breaths, and then 8 breaths. 4 breaths in, 4 counts in of breathing, hold for 7 counts, and release out of your mouth for 8 counts. And just keep doing that over and over again for about 5 or 6 times, and then just see what happens. That has been helping me so much. Okay. And I learned that from the Honest Guys. If you haven't come across the Honest Guys in sleep meditation, then I have put one of my favorite videos in my recommended to watch list. It gets you to sleep in 12 minutes, but you have to actually listen to what they are saying. And their voices are so deep and like monotone in a way, like, yeah, it's quite boring, but that's the whole point, isn't it? I find that has really helped me. So sleep meditations, breathing exercises, there are going to be loads of stuff online that you can find for breathing exercises that you can try even before bed. If actually getting to sleep is a struggle for you. You could play calming music. You can listen to Spotify sleep stories. That's a thing as well. Spotify sleep stories. I've tried that recently. It was recommended by, I think she's a nutritionist, I want to say. And she was saying, yeah, there's like loads of adult bedtime stories that you can listen to. So that might be your thing. The main thing is that you find what works for you and you do not give up on finding what works for you. Because if you give up, then what? There's the road that it's going to head down, which is crankiness, which is not being able to function, not being able to focus, not being able to relate to the people that you care about in the best way possible. It will lead to you reacting as opposed to responding. It will mess up your ability to show up as the person that you want to be, which is why it's so important for me, or it has been so important for me to share this with you. And I'm sure that I will circle back and talk about sleep again because it is such a big thing for so many of us. And there's so many more things that I can suggest. But in saying all of that, and I hope that I haven't, given all of the suggestions, that all of the things that you've ever thought about, I hope that I have given you something new. I know that many people have struggled with sleep so much that also have many, many tips. So if you are watching this and you are someone who has struggled with sleep, please, please, please share any tips that you have come across that work for you, because it might work also for someone else. Okay. So that's it. I'm going to leave you now. I hope you are able to get a good night's sleep based on all of the suggestions that I have given. Please let me know in the comments if anything works for you, or if you're open to trying one of the things that I've suggested. I'm really, really looking forward to hearing from you. And on that note, I am going. Okay. All right. Goodbye.